The ultimatum, the massive space station Nexus Prime, hung in the void like a mechanical planet. Its crystalline towers stretched for kilometers, catching the light of 3 nearby stars. Inside the Grand Council chamber, representatives from 47 different species sat in a perfect circle. The air hummed with the sound of universal translators working overtime. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood at the center of the chamber, her small human form dwarfed by the alien giants around her. She wore a simple blue diplomatic uniform, but her eyes held the steel of someone who had negotiated with the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Today, however, those eyes showed something new. Concerned got at the head of the circular table sat Council Leader Vex Taylor, a towering insectoid creature whose chitinous exoskeleton gleamed like polished obsidian. His 4 arms moved with mechanical precision as he shuffled through digital documents. His compound eyes, each the size of a human fist, reflected the chamber's lights like 1,000 tiny stars. The Stellar Confederation Council calls this emergency session to order, Vex Taylor announced, his voice echoing through the chamber like the grinding of metal gears. We are here to address the growing threat posed by the human species. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. Threat? Humanity had been a peaceful member of the galactic community for over 50 years. They traded with dozens of species, shared scientific knowledge, and had never engaged in aggressive expansion. Honored Council Leader, Sarah began, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. I must request clarification. Humanity has committed no acts of aggression against any member species. Vex Taylor's mandibles clicked together in what Sarah had. Learned was either amusement or contempt. Your ignorance of your own species' crimes is curious, Ambassador Chun. Perhaps you should sit down. A holographic display materialized above the center of the chamber. It showed detailed schematics of human ships, weapons, and defensive systems. The images rotated slowly, highlighting specific technologies with pulsing red markers. These are the weapons of mass destruction your species has been developing in secret, Vex Taylor continued. Quantum torpedoes capable of destroying entire planets. Shield generators that can withstand the firepower of 1,000 ships. Faster-than-light communication systems that could coordinate surprise attacks across the galaxy. Sarah stared at the display in shock. Every piece of technology shown was classified at the highest levels of human government. How had the Council obtained this information? Your species, Vex Taylor continued, has been secretly building an arsenal capable of conquering the galaxy. This cannot be allowed to continue. That's completely false, Sarah protested. These technologies are purely defensive. We developed them to protect our colonies from pirates and natural disasters. The Council leader's laugh sounded like breaking glass. Defensive technologies? These quantum torpedoes you call defensive can crack open moons. Your shield generators are more powerful than anything used by our peacekeeping forces. And your communication systems could coordinate military operations across the entire galaxy. Around the chamber, other alien representatives began to murmur among themselves. Sarah could see fear in their eyes, fear of humanity. But she also noticed something else. Several of the aliens looked uncomfortable, as if they disagreed with what was happening but dared not speak. The Council has reached a unanimous decision, Vex Taylor announced. Humanity will immediately surrender all military technology to Council oversight. You will dismantle your defensive fleets and allow Council peacekeepers to occupy all human worlds. Any research into advanced weaponry will cease permanently. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. And if we refuse, then humanity will be declared a rogue species. All trade agreements will be terminated. All diplomatic relations will be severed. Any species that assists humanity in any way will face the same punishment. Vex Taylor's compound eyes fixed on Sarah like targeting lasers. Your colonies will be isolated. Your people will slowly starve as resources run out. Eventually, you will submit or you will die. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Sarah felt the weight of billions, of human lives pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just diplomacy. It was extortion on a galactic scale. How long do we have to consider this ... generous offer? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 48 hours, Vex Taylor replied. After that, the embargo begins. Choose wisely, Ambassador Chun. The Council's patience is not infinite. As the session ended, Sarah walked through the station's corridors in a daze. 48 hours to decide the fate of humanity. Surrender their freedom or face economic strangulation and eventual extinction. But as she passed a quiet observation deck, she was approached by a small furred creature she recognized as Ambassador Zilf of the Kalar Republic. The alien looked around nervously before speaking in a whisper. Ambassador Chun, I must speak with you privately. What happened in there? It has happened before. Sarah's blood ran cold. What do you mean? The Council has made these same demands to 12 other species over the past century. The Andromedans, the Spiral Arm Collective, the Outer Rim Federation. All of them were accused of developing dangerous technologies. All of them were given the same ultimatum. What happened to them? Zilf's large eyes filled with sadness. They all submitted. Their technological advancements stopped. Their cultures stagnated. They became puppet states, existing only to serve the Council's needs. The Council has been systematically eliminating any species that might challenge their authority. Sarah felt rage building in her chest. Why didn't you speak up in the chamber? Because those who oppose the Council tend to disappear, Zilf replied. But I have been gathering evidence for years. Hidden files, recorded conversations, testimony. From survivors, the Council is not what it claims to be. Zilf handed Sarah a small data crystal. This contains everything I have collected. Perhaps humanity will be the first species brave enough to use it. Sarah pocketed the crystal and shook Zilf's small hand. Thank you. Your courage will not be forgotten. As she returned to her quarters, Sarah immediately opened a secure communication channel to Earth. The face that appeared on her screen belonged to Admiral Marcus Blake, commander of the Earth Defense Force. His weathered features showed the strain of a man who had spent decades protecting humanity from threats, both known and unknown. Admiral Blake, we have a situation, Sarah began. She quickly explained the Council's ultimatum and the information Zilf had provided. Blake's expression grew darker with each word. So they want us to surrender our sovereignty or face extinction. Typical bullying tactics. Marcus, they have detailed information about our most classified projects. Someone has been spying on us for years. We suspected as much. Dr. Vasquez has been investigating unusual energy signatures around our research facilities. It looks like we've been under surveillance for decades. Sarah's communication screen split to show a second face, Dr. Elena Vasquez, humanity's chief scientist and the architect of many of their advanced technologies. Her dark eyes sparkled with intelligence, but also with barely contained anger. Sarah, I've been analyzing the data you sent. The Council's accusations are based on stolen intelligence, but they've made some crucial mistakes in their analysis. What kind of mistakes? Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. They think they understand our technology, but they've only seen the surface. They have no idea what we're truly capable of. Admiral Blake leaned forward. Elena, are you saying we have options they don't know about? I'm saying we have capabilities that would terrify them if they knew. But more importantly, I think I know how to turn this situation to our advantage. Sarah, felt a spark of hope. What do you have in mind? The Council has been playing this game for over a century. They've perfected the art of intimidation and control, but they've never faced a species like humanity. They've never faced a species that refuses to be controlled. Blake nodded slowly. What's the plan? Dr. Vasquez's smile widened. We're going to give them exactly what they asked for. We're going to show them how dangerous humanity really is, not through violence, but through something far more terrifying to bullies like them. Which is the truth. Sarah felt her heart racing. Elena, you're talking about going to war with the most powerful organization in the galaxy. No, Sarah. I'm talking about exposing them for what they really are. Parasites who have been feeding off the galaxy's fear for generations. And once the galaxy sees them for what they truly are, they'll have no power left. Admiral Blake stood up from his desk. I'm calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. We have 36 hours to prepare for the most important decision in human history. As the communication ended, Sarah sat alone in her quarters, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization hung in the balance. But she also knew that humanity had never backed down from a bully before. The Council had made a crucial mistake. They had assumed that humans would react like the other species. They had intimidated, with fear and submission. But they had forgotten the most important thing about humanity. Humans didn't just fight back when cornered. They fought back with everything they had, using every advantage they could find. And Dr. Vasquez was right. The Council had no idea what they were truly dealing with. The next 48 hours would determine the fate of not just humanity, but of the entire galaxy. And Sarah Chun had a feeling that the Council was about to learn why humans had earned a reputation as the most stubborn species in known space. The clock was ticking, but humanity was ready to make their move. Asterisk, the response, the Global Defense Council. Chamber beneath the Swiss Alps had never seen such an assembly. Presidents, prime ministers, and military leaders from every human nation sat around the circular table, their faces grim with the weight of the decision before them. The chamber's walls displayed real-time feeds from human colonies across the galaxy, showing billions of people going about their lives. Unaware of the crisis unfolding, Admiral Marcus Blake stood at the center of the room, his uniform bearing the insignia of the Earth Defense Force. Behind him, holographic displays showed the Council's ultimatum and intelligence reports from across human space. Ladies and gentlemen, Blake began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 40 years defending humanity. We face the greatest threat in our species' history. Not an invasion or a natural disaster, but something far more. Insidious, systematic subjugation disguised as peacekeeping. President Maria Santos of the United Earth Federation leaned forward. Admiral, what are our realistic options? The Council controls most of the galaxy's trade routes. They could starve our outer colonies within months. That's exactly what they're counting on, replied Dr. Elena Vasquez, stepping forward with a datapad in her hands. But they've made a critical error in their calculations. They've based their entire strategy on the assumption that we're helpless without their support. Chancellor Heinrich Weber of the European Union frowned. Are we not? Our colonies depend on imports of rare materials that only come from Council-controlled systems. Dr. Vasquez smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. That's what they want us to think. But I've been running simulations for the past 18 hours. We're not as dependent as they believe. She activated a holographic display showing resource flowcharts across human space. For the past 20 years, we've been quietly developing alternative supply chains. Mining operations in the Outer Rim, asteroid harvesting in the Kuiper Belt, even some terraforming projects they don't know about. Prime Minister Kenji Nakamura of the Pacific Alliance looked skeptical. You're talking about surviving an embargo. That's not the same as defeating the Council. No, but it's the foundation of what we're going to do, Dr. Vasquez replied. The Council has been using the same playbook for over a century. They identify a species developing advanced technology, accuse them of being a threat, and force them into submission. But they've never faced a species that could expose their game to the entire galaxy. General Patricia Morrison, head of Colonial Defense, spoke up. What exactly are you proposing, Doctor? Dr. Vasquez gestured to the displays around the room. We're going to give them exactly what they want. We're going to attend their tribunal, accept their accusations, and then show the galaxy what the Council really is. The room erupted in confused murmurs. President Santos raised her hand for silence. Dr. Vasquez, that sounds like surrender. It sounds like surrender, Dr. Vasquez agreed. But it's actually the opposite. The Council's power depends on fear and secrecy. They've convinced the galaxy that they're the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. But what happens when the galaxy sees proof that they're the real threat? Admiral Blake nodded slowly. You're talking about a psychological warfare campaign. I'm talking about the truth, Dr. Vasquez replied. Ambassador Zilf gave us a data crystal containing evidence of the Council's crimes spanning over a century. Forced subjugation, technological theft, the systematic destruction of entire civilizations' development. If we can present this evidence to the galaxy in the right way, the Council's authority collapses, finished Chancellor Weber. But how do we ensure the galaxy sees this evidence? The Council controls most of the major communication networks. Dr. Vasquez's smile widened. They control the major networks, but they don't control all of them. And they certainly don't control the quantum communication arrays we've been secretly installing throughout human space. General Morrison leaned forward. Quantum communication? That's theoretical technology. It was theoretical 5 years ago, Dr. Vasquez replied. Now it's operational. We can broadcast simultaneously to every inhabited system in the galaxy, using a communication method the Council can't detect or intercept. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Prime Minister Nakamura was the first to speak. You're talking about a galactic revolution. I'm talking about galactic liberation, Dr. Vasquez corrected. The Council has been a parasite on the galaxy's development for over a century. It's time to remove that parasite. President Santos stood up. What do you need from us, Doctor? Time, resources, and the courage to bet everything on humanity's greatest strength, which is our refusal to stay down when bullies try to keep us there. 18 hours later, Ambassador Sarah Chun stood once again in the Council chamber on Nexus Prime, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a small group of human representatives, including Dr. Vasquez, who had insisted on being present for what she called the most important presentation in galactic history. Council leader Vex Taylor's compound eyes fixed on the human delegation. Ambassador Chun, I trust you bring your species surrender. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. Council leader Vex Taylor, humanity has considered your ultimatum carefully. We have decided to accept your judgment. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. Several alien representatives looked shocked that humans would surrender so easily. However, Sarah continued, before we formally submit to Council authority, we request the right to present our case to the galaxy. Surely a species facing extinction deserves to have their voice heard? Vex Taylor's mandibles clicked together. This is irregular. The Council has already reached its decision. Of course, Sarah replied. But surely the Council has nothing to fear from allowing a defeated species to speak. After all, the galaxy should understand why humanity was such a threat. The Council leader's eyes narrowed, but he could hardly refuse such a reasonable request, without appearing tyrannical. Very well. You may speak, but briefly. Sarah nodded to Dr. Vasquez, who stepped forward with a small device in her hands. Honored members of the Council, and to all beings throughout the galaxy who are watching this transmission, I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, Chief Scientist of the human species. She activated the device, and immediately holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber. But these weren't the same displays the Council had shown earlier. These showed detailed records, communication logs, and evidence files. What you are about to see is the truth about the Stellar Confederation Council, Dr. Vasquez announced. Evidence of crimes spanning over a century, affecting dozens of species across the galaxy. The displays showed recorded conversations between Council members discussing their harvest protocols, systematic plans to identify and subjugate any species that might challenge their authority. They showed the manipulation of trade routes to strangle independent worlds. They showed the assassination of alien leaders who opposed Council policies. But most damaging of all, they showed the Council's own internal communications, where they openly discussed how to maintain their power by keeping other species technologically and politically inferior. Council leader Vex Taylor rose from his seat, his voice booming with rage. This is fabricated. Lies and propaganda. These are your own communication logs, Dr. Vasquez replied calmly. Quantum encrypted transmissions that you believed were impossible to intercept. But humanity has been monitoring your activities for the past 5 years. The alien representatives throughout the chamber began to react with shock and growing anger. Ambassador Zilf stood up from his seat, his small voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The human speaks the truth. I have been gathering evidence of these crimes for decades. Other representatives began to speak up. The delegate from the Andromedan system confirmed that his species had been subjected to the same ultimatum 50 years earlier. The representative from the Spiral Arm Collective revealed that their technological development had been systematically sabotaged by Council agents. Vex Taylor's compound eyes darted around the chamber as he realized the situation was spiraling out of his control. Silence. This is clearly a coordinated attack on Council authority. No, Sarah said, stepping forward. This is justice. Dr. Vasquez activated another function on her device. What the Council doesn't know is that this entire conversation is being broadcast simultaneously to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Every species, every colony, every station is seeing the evidence of Council crimes right now. The Chamber's communication systems began chiming with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Display screens showed news feeds from dozens of worlds, all reporting on the Council's exposed crimes. On some worlds, massive demonstrations were already beginning. Furthermore, Dr. Vasquez continued, the quantum communication network that made this broadcast possible is now available to every species in the galaxy. The Council's monopoly on interstellar communication is over. Vex Taylor's exoskeleton seemed to darken with rage. You have doomed yourselves, humans. The Council will not tolerate this rebellion. What Council? Sarah asked with a smile. Look around you. Indeed, the chamber was in chaos. Alien representatives were demanding explanations. Others were calling for investigations, and several were already announcing their withdrawal from the Council. The carefully maintained facade of unity was crumbling in real time. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. The chamber's main display screen activated to show a massive space fleet emerging from hyperspace around Nexus Prime. But these weren't Council ships. They were vessels from dozens of different species, all converging on the station. The Galactic Liberation Fleet, announced Admiral Blake's voice over the communication system, representing 43 species who have been freed from Council oppression. They're here to ensure the peaceful transition to a new galactic government. Dr. Vasquez looked directly at Vex Taylor. You built your power on secrets and fear. But secrets can be exposed, and fear can be overcome. The age of the Council is over. As the evidence continued to pour in, and more species joined the rebellion, Vex Taylor and the remaining Council loyalists found themselves increasingly isolated. The station's security forces, composed of troops from various species, began to refuse orders as their home governments recalled them. Within hours, the Council's authority had completely collapsed. The revelation of their crimes, broadcast simultaneously to the entire galaxy, had triggered a chain reaction that no amount of military force could stop. But humanity's response went beyond simple revenge. As the chaos settled, Sarah Chun stood before the assembled representatives with a new proposal. "A galaxy has been ruled by fear for too long," she announced. "It's time for a new approach. Humanity proposes the establishment of a true galactic democracy, where all species have equal representation and no single group can dominate the others." The proposal was revolutionary, a government based on cooperation rather than domination, scientific advancement rather than technological hoarding, and justice rather than intimidation. In the months that followed, the transition was not without challenges. Some species remained loyal to the old council, while others struggled to adapt to the new freedoms. But humanity's technological gifts, the quantum communication networks, advanced transportation systems, and defensive technologies were freely shared with all species. Dr. Vasquez established the Galactic Institute of Technology, where scientists from all species could collaborate on projects for the benefit of everyone. Admiral Blake helped create the new Galactic Defense Force, a truly international military organization dedicated to protecting all species from external threats. And Ambassador Sarah Chun became the first Secretary General of the Galactic Democracy, elected by representatives from over 200 species. But perhaps the most significant change was in the galaxy's attitude toward progress and innovation. No longer would species be punished for advancing too quickly or developing new technologies. Instead, they were encouraged to share their discoveries and collaborate with others. The Galactic Council had tried to blackmail humanity into submission, expecting them to react like all the other species they had intimidated. But they had made a fatal error in their calculations. They had forgotten that humans had a long history of responding to bullies in ways that bullies never expected. Not with submission or fear, but with courage, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to accept injustice. The galaxy had been transformed, and at the center of that transformation was a simple human truth. Sometimes the most terrifying response to a threat is not violence, but the courage to tell the truth and stand up for what's right. The age of the Council was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun. And it all started with a species that refused to be pushed around.